Let's start with Venezuela, shall we? Because, Andrew, we've been getting different perspectives throughout the programme this morning. I think for people who are just sort of waking up to the news and the sort of evolution, I suppose, of Donald Trump's position, what do you make of his motivations here with what he's chosen to do in Venezuela?
I think it's very concerning. Not getting rid of Maduro, I've got no problem with that. Indeed, I'm glad to see the back of him. Most Venezuelans are. He's pauperized the country, he's repressed the country, he's run it into the ground, he's allowed Russia to become a wedge in that part of Latin America. Was kept afloat by Cuban intelligence and Cuban resources, while he kept Cuba afloat with Venezuelan oil. So it's good to see the back of him. But the question is, why are you doing it and what comes next? And I think it's very concerning that Mr. Trump has made no reference to the need to move to a democratic system in Venezuela. No reference to giving power to those who won the election in 2024, backed by that very brave woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize. Maybe that's what rankles with Mr. Trump. No timeline from getting from A to B to getting a more democratic government, and then having established that, move probably to further elections. All things that would justify the removal of Mr. Maduro. But hey, we wake up this morning, I've written about it in the Mail this morning too, we discover that Mr. Trump seems very happy to deal with Mr. Maduro's vice president, another hardline socialist kept in power by evil people. And as long as she does as she's told and she gets the oil out to America's greater glory, Mr. Trump seems happy to go along with this. And it seems to, in effect, there has been no regime change in Caracas. Simply the removal of Maduro. The regime is still in charge. And Trump, I mean, I find this almost fantastical. Mr. Trump seems to prefer to deal with what's left of the Maduro regime rather than begin the transition to a democratic regime. It's actually terrifying.
And does that tell us something about the motivations here? Because the question of international law is one that will be asked today. The United Nations is going to meet. That may well be a vote on where the international community stands. There's a suggestion in the Times this morning that the UK will abstain on that vote. But some people are looking at this in a different way, not about regime change, as you say, and that might explain why we're not hearing that from Trump, but instead about the extension of a domestic policy agenda, a president looking towards the midterms, a president looking to bring down the oil price because there is concern about the economic reality for people in America right now, a president who wants to stop drugs trafficking, who wants to stop illegal immigration. That actually this is, and there's a phrase being used, it's about the sphere of influence, that actually Venezuela is now in Donald Trump's sphere of influence, and therefore he doesn't see it in the same way that other people do about regime change. He sees it as a domestic issue to be tackled in that way.
Well, I've said many times before on Times Radio that the concentration of Trump's foreign policy is in the Western Hemisphere. He's basically retreating from Europe. He doesn't care that much about the Eastern Pacific Rim. What matters to him is the Western Hemisphere. It's a revival of the Monroe Doctrine, invented by an early 19th century president called Mr. Monroe. I see Mr. Trump now refers to it as the Donroe policy. But it's more, but the Monroe Doctrine was about keeping out foreign influences from the Western Hemisphere, and the rest of the world recognizing that the Western Hemisphere was America's sphere of influence. But Mr. Trump's gone much further. It looks like going much further than that in Venezuela. It's not enough now just for Venezuela to become part of America's sphere of influence. That's been true in the past. It seems that he wants a regime in Venezuela that will simply do his bidding, as he does in Greenland, as he wanted in Panama, as he probably still wants in Canada too. So I think these are worrying times for America's near neighbors. It isn't just, it's always been the case de facto that America, the superpower of the Western Hemisphere, that all these other countries were within America's sphere of influence, but they weren't just regimes that did whatever America wanted. They were independent countries in their own right. That doesn't seem to be good enough for Donald Trump now. And as I say, it looks like he's going to work with a hardline socialist leader in Venezuela, rather than the democratic opposition, which is there. I mean, this is something that is not fully appreciated. It's not that there's a huge risk of civil war in Venezuela now because the country falls apart. There is a democratic opposition which clearly won the election in July 2024, ready to take over. But no, Mr. Trump wants to keep this socialist gang of thugs in power as long as they get the oil out the ground for them. It's as I say, it's an appalling, potentially appalling development.
And what is the UK to say and do about it? I've been struck, Andrew, we've had various UK politicians on this programme, and they're in a right mess. That we've had representatives of Labour and the Tory, where they basically say, great, Maduro's gone, and then they pause deliberately to disassociate between the two statements and then say, but international law needs to be maintained. And we then say, well, how do the two interconnect? Yeah. An answer comes then on. And then we get this position where they say, well, he was illegitimate. And you say, OK, should America go in and overthrow the junta in Myanmar? Should they get rid of Lukashenko in Belarus? Should they get rid of Khomeini in Iran? Are you saying that everyone with an illegitimate leader in the whole world should be dethroned by America? And they can't really answer. They don't really know what to say because they're terrified of offending Donald Trump. That seems to where we've got to with all of this.
Well, we know what they want to say is that they largely hate Donald Trump and they had a soft spot for Maduro. The British left being the one few people in the world that were fans of Maduro and Chavez beforehand, and they wish Trump hadn't done this, and they hate it. But they can't say that because the Labour leadership is still trying to cozy up to Trump. I mean, you listen to these Labour MPs and others, British commentators as well, commentating on this, it makes you want to cut your wrists. The way they go about it and the way they're trying to dance on the head of a pin. What the British government should be saying is one, we're happy to see the back of Maduro. He was an evil man who ran an evil regime. But the only possible justification for doing that is to pave the way to return Venezuela to democracy. And that look, regime change is always difficult, but in Venezuela, there is a real chance of it being a success because there is a credible opposition that won the election in July of 2024 with credible leaders, with substantial support in the country, ready to take over. So why are we not moving to that? That's what all British politicians, what the British government should be saying, which is that the justification for throwing over the dictator of another country is to pave the way for democracy in that country. It should be possible in Venezuela. And if we don't do that, it undermines the reason for getting rid of Maduro in the first place. After all, this woman who's replaced him, Rodriguez, she's just as hardline as Maduro. The difference is that Trump thinks, but if she does it, she's told, I don't care if she's that hardline. And it means America loses all moral power in this of freedom, democracy, liberalism. In fact, all that matters is a return to power politics and give us your oil.
Well, they don't care though, do they? I mean, that's true. I mean, I just don't. The idea that there's sort of a moral stance that Trump would heed is ridiculous. He doesn't care.
And why are British MPs, British Labour MPs, not standing up for Greenland?
Right. And Tories as well.
Controlled by Denmark. Denmark, who is one of our country's greatest historic allies, a NATO ally, a country that shares our values, a country in which the people of Denmark speak better English than the English. I mean, why are we not standing up for Denmark and saying, no, this will not be allowed to happen. You can't just go and take whatever country you want. And to hear Emily Thornby go on about, oh, well, you know, what he's done in Venezuela, it's against international law and all the rest of it. What will Russia do? Is it not dawned on her that Russia's already invaded Ukraine? And doesn't she realize that China will do whatever it wants in Taiwan, regardless of what Trump has done in Venezuela? These things should be seen in their own right. There is every justification for what Trump has done in Venezuela, provided it leads to a new democratic government. And at the moment, as things stand this morning, that does not look likely, and it's appalling.